I was the fourth survey team sent into the Kelvane vault, and I was the first one who came back out with a full head count. That wasn't luck. The corporation liked to say it was training, and my supervisor liked to say it was equipment, and the two men who'd walked into the vault with me liked to say nothing at all, because they were 3 switchbacks behind me, with a rope between us and their eyes on the floor the way I'd told them to keep them. I was the one who'd read the incident reports, all 3 of them, cover to cover, twice. I knew exactly how the first team died, and the second, and most of the third. The first team's report was 4 pages, and mostly redacted, but the surviving lines said enough. 2 surveyors down within 90 seconds of the chamber floor lighting up. Cause of death listed as unknown. Artifact recovered from the body of the senior surveyor. The second team's report ran longer, because one of them lived long enough to radio up from the stairwell before he stopped answering. The transcript of that call sat in my kit the whole descent, a page I'd read so many times I could recite it without the flashlight. They'd all taken something. The vault sat under 400 meters of cooled basalt, in the throat of a volcano the local charts didn't bother naming because nothing had used the surface for 10,000 years. The builders were gone before humans had wheels. What they'd left behind was a spiral stair cut so precisely into the rock that our laser levels couldn't find a millimeter of drift across 200 meters of descent, and at the bottom, a round chamber with a domed ceiling and a floor of dust so old it had stopped being dust and started being a kind of stone in its own right. We'd rehearsed the descent twice on the surface before we ever touched the actual stair, the 2 men behind me reciting back the one rule I cared about. Nobody's hands went near the pedestal but mine, and mine wouldn't go near it either, unless the job required it. It didn't. My contract was structural integrity, stress fractures in the dome, load calculations on that impossible stair, 4 hours, in and out, no reason to come within 3 meters of the thing that had killed 6 people before me. And in the center of that floor, on a low pedestal, sat a disc the size of my palm, carved from something between bronze and bone, etched with a sunburst pattern that didn't match anything in the builder's other work. Nobody knew what it did. Nobody knew what it was for. 3 teams had gone in to survey the architecture, and 3 teams had come out, or not come out, 1 relic short. The company had stopped sending people in for the disc itself. Nobody wanted it anymore. We were here to map the chamber's structural integrity before they sealed the whole shaft in ceramic and forgot about it. Routine. In and out in 4 hours. I found the disc still sitting on the pedestal, which surprised me, because the last team's manifest said they'd taken it and dropped dead on the stairs before they cleared the first switchback. Someone above my pay grade had apparently sent a retrieval crew in afterward to put it back, log it as recovered, and call the incident closed. Standard procedure for anything that killed clients. You don't leave the expensive artifact lying next to the bodies for the insurance photographs. I crouched to take the reference photo my job actually required, and that's when I saw it. The dust on the pedestal wasn't undisturbed. It never is, not really, no matter how careful the retrieval crew thinks they're being. But under raking light from my headlamp, I could see the exact print the disc had worn into that dust over 10,000 years. A shallow ring, symmetrical, with one flattened edge, where the etched sunburst design tipped very slightly toward what I guessed was the chamber's eastern wall. The disc sitting on the pedestal right now was rotated about 15 degrees off that print. Close. Close enough that 4 survey teams and however many centuries of nobody had walked past it and never noticed. But not exact. Somebody, probably that hurried retrieval crew, gloved up and moving fast to get out of a chamber that had already killed 2 of their coworkers that week, had set it back wrong. I couldn't blame them. Nobody in that position stops to check a fingernail's width of rotation against a print in 10,000-year-old dust. I only noticed because checking exactly that kind of thing was the entire reason anyone paid me. I don't know why it mattered to me. I've spent 9 years cataloging structures nobody living remembers building, and there's a rule you learn early. You don't touch the placement of things. You photograph what's there. You don't correct it. You don't tidy it. You don't decide you know better than 10,000 years of undisturbed context. I broke that rule exactly once, for 15 degrees of rotation that nobody else would ever have caught. I turned the disc until the flattened edge of the sunburst sat back inside its own worn print, matched to the width of a fingernail. Then I took my photograph, The correct one. The one that would actually mean something to whoever studied this chamber next. And I stood up to finish the structural survey I'd actually been sent to do. The floor started humming under my boots before I'd taken 3 steps. I'd read the incident reports. I knew what came next was supposed to be fast. So when the light bloomed up out of the floor in a ring around the pedestal, I didn't run, because I'd already worked out that running hadn't saved anyone in 3 prior attempts, and standing very still hadn't gotten anyone killed who wasn't already holding the relic. The construct that rose out of the floor wasn't shaped like anything from the builder's carved reliefs upstairs. It was columnar, faceted, taller than the chamber's low ceiling should have allowed, folding itself somehow into the available space the way water finds the shape of its container. Where a face might have gone, there was a shifting lattice of the same bronze bone material as the disc, and it turned that lattice toward me, and toward the pedestal, and back toward me. Behind me, one of my escorts said my name, in a voice asking permission to run. I didn't turn around. I kept my hands open and low, and my eyes on the lattice instead of the disc, because I'd already decided the disc wasn't mine to look at anymore. I stood there and let it look. It had been 3 teams and 1 retrieval crew since anyone had stood in this chamber without either stealing that disc or panicking at the sight of what guarded it. I didn't know which one triggered the killing. I only knew I hadn't done either. The construct extended one faceted limb toward the pedestal. Not fast, not the strike I'd braced for, but slow, almost the way you'd reach toward something you hadn't expected to see again. It touched the disc without moving it, checked the alignment, maybe, the way I had, held there a long moment. Then it folded itself back down into the floor, the light went with it, and the humming stopped. I stood in the sudden quiet for longer than I needed to. My 2 escorts caught up a minute later, breathing hard, asking what the light had been, and I told them the truth, which was that I didn't fully know. I finished the structural survey. I photographed the chamber, the stair, the dome, everything the job actually paid for. I did not touch the disc again. On the climb back up, one of them asked if I was going to log the incident. I said I'd log the corrected placement and the construct's activation, because both were real and both mattered to whoever came down here next. He asked if I wanted a bonus filed for recovering the artifact's provenance data, since technically, I'd been the one to identify the original resting position. I told him no, I hadn't found anything. I'd only put something back where it had always belonged, and the only thing that had changed because of it was that, for the first time in 10,000 years of visitors, the vault had finally had no reason to kill one. He pushed a little, the way people do when they've decided you're being modest about something worth money. Provenance data on an artifact like that could be worth a real figure to the right university, he said, and my name could sit on the paper that finally explained the sunburst pattern. I told him I still didn't know what it meant. I'd corrected a rotation, not decoded a language. That was enough. I didn't need my name on the file for it. We finished cataloging the dome's stress fractures without incident, and climbed the last of the stair into ordinary daylight, a full 90 minutes ahead of schedule. Nobody up top believed the fast timeline meant good news, until they saw all 3 of us walk out on our own legs, which by the vault's history alone, made it the best afternoon anyone on that mountain had logged in years. We sealed the shaft 8 months later, once the survey was complete, and the company decided the site wasn't worth the insurance risk of further study. I heard the disc is still down there, sitting exactly 15 degrees truer than it had been for longer than anyone can account for. In a dust print it finally fits.